Hi there, this is Panic Girl and welcome in my studio. In 1973, Pink Floyd released an album called The Dark Side of the Moon, one of the most influential albums of all time. For this album, they experimented a lot with the Synthi AKS, a synthesizer from a London-based company called EMS, short for Electronic Music Studios. The Synthi AKS was a portable analog synthesizer with an integrated touch-sensitive keyboard and a pin matrix used to connect its individual components without patch cables. At the time it cost around £420 and was used by artists like The Who, Brian Eno, Jean-Michel Jarre and Pink Floyd. It can be heard on many records of that era. On Pink Floyd's album The Dark Side of the Moon, there's one track in particular which is famous for its use of the Synthi AKS, namely On the Run. Today I would like to show you how to recreate this iconic sequence on a Synthi A, which is nearly identical to the Synthi AKS, except that it lacks the built-in keyboard sequencer unit. Then I would also like to show you how to create that sequence on a Moog Mother-32, and last but not least patch a version of it on a Eurorack system. So, let's dive in. Let's start with this beautiful Synthi A to recreate the Pink Floyd sequence. It's the closest I have to the original Synthi AKS, which Pink Floyd used back in the day. Since I don't have the built-in keyboard sequencer unit, I'm using this Kenton Pro Solo to convert incoming MIDI data into control voltages. The CV is sent into the Synthi A via this cable. The sequence itself consists of 8 notes, namely E, G, A, G, D, C, D, E, and is played at a tempo of around 165. On the Synthi A, I'm using a mix of oscillator 1 and 2 and send them into the filter, and from there I patch the signal into the envelope section. From the envelope section, I'm sending the signal into the spring reverb just to add a subtle touch of space. From the reverb module, the signal goes then to outputs 1 and 2. Let's have a listen how it sounds. To modulate the filter cutoff, I patched oscillator 3 and the trapezoid output into the filter frequency control input. This creates subtle filter movement, giving the sound its dynamic feel. To recreate the noisy layer from the original sequence, we'll make use of the noise generator and the ring modulator over here. For this we have to patch the pitch CV of the sequencer to ring modulation input A and the noise output into ring modulation input B and adjust the levels over here. To be able to hear the noisy layer, we also need to send the ring modulator signal to output channels 1 and 2. As you can hear, every Synthi has its own unique character to it, but I think we get quite close to the original sequence with this patch. Next, I would like to try to recreate the sequence on a Moog Mother-32. For this I already programmed the 8 steps into the built-in sequencer here. For the sound we first need to set the VCO to square wave. Set the pulse width knob to the center position to get a clean and balanced square wave tone. Also make sure the mix knob is turned fully counterclockwise to select VCO only as the audio source. For the envelope we will need to turn on sustain. This will make the notes play at a more consistent volume throughout the duration, more similar to how the Synthi AKS sounded in On the Run. Without sustain the sound would decay quickly, like this. The filter is in low-pass mode and we can now adjust the cutoff frequency and resonance. To add a bit more movement and dynamics, I patched the keyboard CV output into the cutoff modulation input. This makes the filter track the pitch. Lower notes will sound darker and higher notes will sound brighter, just like on the original sequence. We can also use the LFO to modulate the cutoff frequency slightly to make it sound more alive. As for the noisy layer, I used the Moogerfooger Ringmodulator in this case. I patched the noise output from the Moog Mother-32 into the audio input of the Ringmodulator and the gate output into the carrier in jack. It doesn't quite sound like the original, which is much more snappier and more accentuated, but at least we have a noise layer that brings us a bit closer to it. Last but not least, I'd like to show you how to recreate the sequence on a Eurorack system. You can of course substitute any of the modules I'm using here with modules you prefer. You could choose different oscillators, filters, or use another noise source or sequencer, for example. For my patch, I'm using the Hermod sequencer by Squarp Instruments. I've already programmed the notes into track 1 over here and set the tempo to 165. I patched the CV output from track 1 into the 1 volt per octave input of my oscillator of choice, which is the Minimod by AJH Synth in this case. From the 4 available waveforms, I chose the square wave, which I patched into the audio input of the A102 filter by Döpfer. This filter uses diode ladder technology, similar to the EMS Synthi, giving it a somewhat similar character. To be finally able to hear something, I patched the audio signal from the filter output into the Döpfer A135-2 module, which is a voltage-controlled amplifier. But in this case, I'm not using an envelope or CV to control the volume dynamically. I'm simply opening the VCA manually using the level knob. From the output of the VCA, the audio then goes into my interface and then into my computer. Using the filter cutoff and resonance controls, we can shape the sound to get a similar result as in the original track by Pink Floyd. We can also use an LFO, in this case the A147-2 by Döpfer, to modulate the cutoff of the filter module. As for the noisy layer of the sequence, we take the control voltage from the Hermod sequencer that we already used to control the pitch of the oscillator and patch it into the X input of the Ring SM module by AJH Synth. X is the carrier signal in this case. For the Y input, meaning the modulator signal, we use white noise from the 266T module from Tip Top Audio and Buchla. Finally, we patch the output of the Ringmodulator into the VCA as well to hear the result. Yeah, so this is as close as I could get with the modules I had at hand, and I think it captures the character quite well. That's it for today's video. I hope you had fun analyzing this iconic Pink Floyd sequence with me. It remains a reminder of how innovation and experimentation can create something timeless. If you have any questions or any additional interesting info, just leave them in the comments below. Bye!